Hello, everyone. It's time to learn about self-portraits. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some artists throughout history who have really made a name for themselves as self-portrait artists. We're going to look at some careers related to portraits, people who like to draw and paint and photograph portraits in general. And then I'll show you how to get started. You might be using pencil or colored pencil on this project as you have the choice. So today is all about self-portraits. What are they? How do you do it? Let's get started. Buckle up. All right. So here you can see some examples of some professionals up top, and believe it or not, on the bottom here were some student works. Let's actually put this in present mode here. All right. But the big goal for today is to, again, learn about the history of self-portraits, possible careers, and how to get started. Okay. So first of all, why would an artist create a self-portrait? I mean, why did Leonardo da Vinci back in the early 1500s decide to take a piece of red chalk one day and an old piece of paper and scribble his own likeness? Think about it. You know, I'm asking you to do a self-portrait because yes, it's in the curriculum and it's something you should do. And it's a cool rite of passage as an artist. But why would someone do that? Well, answer is actually not so simple. Some people did it probably for vanity, you know, to say, look at me, I'm an artist, I was here. Some might have done it to really capture what they look like, because let's be honest, in the 1500s, there were no cameras. Yes, there were some crude mirrors, or there was ponds or pools you could look into and sort of see your reflection. But on the daily, most people, you know, weren't walking into the bathroom in the morning, brushing their teeth and looking in the mirror like we do every day. Or heck, now we pull out our phones and take selfies nonstop. We know what we look like. But back in the day, it might have been out of kind of necessity. You know, what do I look like? Oftentimes, people were doing portraits of other people as commissions, and they were getting paid. For example, you worked for someone that had some money, like the king or queen or wealthy people, and they would want their portrait painted as a legacy to the fact that they existed. Some people do it just to practice, to get better at drawing or painting other people. There's just a lot of reasons. Why did Leonardo da Vinci do it? We'll never know. We can't ask him. But what we do know is that there weren't a bunch of these. He wasn't doing it all the time. We have this one example, a couple other smaller examples of what he might have looked like. So here we have a totally different scenario. A gentleman named Albrecht Durer, living around the same time, but he was part of the more northern Renaissance, not the Italian Renaissance. This is what he looked like. It's a strange looking getup he's wearing, that hat, I don't know, he's got looks like leather gloves on. But here is a case where this artist really wanted to say, hey, look at me, I'm an artist. You have to realize prior to the Renaissance, say prior to the 1400s, artists were not putting their name on their artwork. They were artisans, they were worker bees, and they got commissions and they got paid. Some people did tiling, some did sculpture, some did painting or tapestries or architecture, but they generally didn't sign their name. But this is one of our earliest examples. You can see his little monogram here, the AD, which stands for his initials, Albrecht Durer. He was one that said, hey, I've worked my whole life. I mean, here's one at age 13, so you could tell he was pretty good. I mean, drawing fabric like that at age 13 shows you he's dedicated his time and effort to it. Here's another one of his. But he was one that said, you know, I'm an artist. I'm not just a worker bee. I am someone at an elevated level in the world of art. And so check me out. So I know this looks like maybe your stereotypical, you know, white Jesus with the long hair and the facial hair, but no, this is how Albrecht Durer looked. And this was done in 1500, not 1500 AD, although it was, but 1500 Albrecht Durer. He's letting you know who he was. And over here, he's got another little inscription. So some artists did it to say, hey, check me out. Some ladies started doing this as well. Understand that for the longest time, the art world was a very male-dominated industry. They were the ones doing the bricklaying and the architecture. They were the ones doing the painting and the sculpture. But if you had means and money, like these ladies I'm about to show you, you might get into painting. So really, it was reserved for the wealthy back in the day. When we look at, you know, Western painting, that is. So here we have a self-portrait from Katerina van Hemissen, tongue-tied there. And she's kind of unrealistically dressed up. You know, she's showing you her palette, which is unrealistically small, and she's got her brushes all splayed out, and she's dressed up. I have to be honest, no one that paints, especially with oil paints, is going to get dressed up like this. I usually put on my jeans and a nasty t-shirt and an old smock because it's messy stuff. But these artists are trying to portray themselves as fine artists, and look at me. So again, they're kind of saying, you know, in a single self-portrait, you know, this is who I am, and they're putting their best face forward. Here's another, Judith Leister. I mean, obviously, you're not going to paint with that big doily around your neck, so it's impractical in one way. And I mean, look, she's holding on to 50 paintbrushes. Most painters don't do that, but she is showing you her having fun, and that she is a painter. So just kind of cool. Now, when we talk about the all-time leader for doing self-portraits, we go to Rembrandt. Okay, Rembrandt was a portrait artist. Well, he did a lot of landscapes and still lives and all kinds of scenes. But as far as doing self-portraits, I think he holds the record. You could Google that. But here we just see a sampling. You know, when he might have been in his late teens or 20s or 30s, we can fast forward to the 40s, 50s, 60s. This guy was constantly painting other people. But if he didn't have a model or a commission that day, he would look in the mirror and practice to get better. So I don't think he did it really for vanity's sake to say, look at me, look at me, look at me over and over again. But he was one who really honed his skills. I'd love to see, maybe someone's done this, but kind of like almost like a flip book of him evolving. If you had a little video that watched him morph from one to the next, you could actually see him age. So that's kind of cool to leave that legacy behind. Before there was photography, you know, which happened in the 1700s. So, you know, kind of cool. We've got other folks that did it. Not sure why Van Gogh painted self-portraits, but I love his intensity and his seriousness. Most all of his are this, what we call three-quarter view. So he's not looking head on, and he's not in profile. Profile is from the side. But you could tell that he had his canvas here, and his mirror was off to the side, and he was looking, but oh, the intenseness, the glare in his eyes. I mean, we know from his artwork and from his notes to his brother Theo that he was a very intense and very disturbed, mentally ill, to be honest, individual. And you can see that and sense that, I think, in his eyes. You can also sense it in the colors he used and the brush strokes he used. I mean, look at that background. It looks like there's a swirling storm. It looks like he's ready to hurt someone. And in fact, at times, he did try to hurt someone. And at one point hurt himself and cut off part of his ear, which he actually shows here. You know, he's showing you that he has a bandaged ear. So he's got quite a few self-portraits. There's one in the DIA right downtown in Detroit, which looks similar to this one. It says something like "Man with Straw Hat," simple title. But again, serious. Oh, love him. Also serious and brutally honest is another portrait artist, Frida Kahlo. 90 some percent of her work, I would argue 95% of her work is self portraits, but she does it in such a unique and honest way. And they talk about her tragedies about life. I mean, she had some issues. I mean, she had one leg shorter than another. She got into a trolley accident in which she was impaled by a metal beam that went through her pelvis, messed up her spine, and she could never have kids. I mean, she had a husband who was pretty well known, Diego Rivera. He cheated on her with her sister. I mean, so anyway, we love our tortured artist stories, but she was one. Here's Diego Rivera's work down at the DIA as well. We have some of his artwork. That was her husband, but she would paint her suffering. She was bedridden for a long time, had all kinds of surgeries, and when you look at this upon a first glance, you know, it seems like, you know, ooh, that's lovely. Look at the flowers and the butterflies. But you take a closer look. I mean, looks like a black panther behind her. We've got a monkey pulling on some thorns that are digging into her neck, and there's a dead bird hanging around her neck. There's some strange things going on here. And that look in her face is not really one of joy. It looks almost like she's, out to lunch. She's just staring off into space. Here's another that's dealing with her ancestry. This was done just prior to her wedding. She was considering, who she is when she gets married. Is she Jewish, Hungarian? Is she Mexican? She has a lot of different, her ancestry is, has a lot of different moving parts to it. The background, though, look at the storm. I mean, and then look at the fact that she's got a tourniquet or something pinching on her veins, which are coming out, bleeding on her dress. Her heart's exposed, and they're very surreal. Obviously, if your heart's literally out of your chest, you got a problem. Go see the doctor. But she can metaphorically, symbolically, explain her pain and who she is. So this one called the Two Fridas is not her and her sister, it's her and herself, thinking about her bloodlines and her ancestry. Here's another one. Again, obviously, she's not part deer, but she's trying to expose, her pain and suffering that she goes through. They're just intense. I mean, here's another. Oh, we're missing a photo there. That's odd. Anyway, Pablo Picasso was very inventive. So when you look at his self-portraits, and there should be four here, um, they're never the same portrait twice because he was always trying to come up with some new way, a new creative way to invent some new art form. So what you're seeing here are him in different stages of his life, some early years. This last one was done in his 80s. So you might look at this one in the corner and think, oh, that was done by a fifth grader. Well, actually, it was him near death. When you get to be quite old and you're Picasso, which you have a great life and women throw themselves at you and you have millions of dollars, you don't really want to die quite yet. And I think I sense that in this work, although it looks kind of abstract or even cartoony. There's a seriousness about it and those wide eyes and lack of smile. As you get older and like all of us, we're going to die someday. I just think he did a great job of conveying that seriousness and that brutal, has this energy about it that I just really love. So one of my favorite guys that didn't do a lot of self portraits. I only could find two examples. Is Jacob Lawrence. I love his very simplified, more cubistic work. He was part of the Harlem Renaissance out of New York, so he was working in the 30s, 40s, 50s mainly. Um, but here we have an example. If you're going to do a self portrait, why not do one, just the way you want, in your studio, looking out at people like, hey, how you doing? He's got his artwork in his background. He's showing you his brushes. I really like his style. So personal favorite of mine. Another personal favorite, MC Escher. We've talked about him a couple times. Here he is showing you his talents again. He could draw what he sees inside of a mirror sphere, or even this little, looks like a shaving mirror. Um, the guy was very mathematical, and I think when he looked into this mirror, he likely counted, I dare say, or drew every little hair that he saw. He was very meticulous, very detail oriented. Um, they're just amazing. But even beyond that, this is moving forward. These are kind of chronological, by the way, in case you missed that. Now we're looking at the 1960s, 70s. Chuck Close one day wakes up. His hair's all tousled. He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And he takes this photograph, almost looking up his nose. Obviously, he's holding the camera down here. And it really was raw and real, kind of like a Frida Kahlo. But this is a painting, believe it or not. He was using airbrush at the time to really get, those soft transitions and make the skin look like real skin. And when you look at this up close, like you can even see pores and the little lines in his skin and every little hair. This is a large painting, so he can get that kind of detail in it. But he kind of created, or I wouldn't say invented, but took drawing realistically to the next level. And from this point on, we had a new movement called hyperrealism. Some call it photorealism. So realistic that it can fool people into thinking it's a photograph. He's still working today. He's quite a bit older, and now he is wheelchair bound. He has I forget the name of his debilitating disease, but he still paints. And although he might not be able to paint with such detail and precision, he can still make something look like a photograph, especially if you squint your eyes and soften all of those edges or get back at some distance. So, same artist here, but just different times in his life. He uses just different techniques now. So a scribble technique, which might be much looser. Now my all-time favorite, this is Norman Rockwell's triple self-portrait. I mean, if you just study this for a second, you'll see why maybe it's my favorite. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Number one, he's painted himself 3 times, but even within that, he's painted himself in black and white and in color. And he's painted himself from the front and behind. It's not easy to do in a self-portrait. He's painted himself with his glasses and without his glasses. I mean, he shows you how he works, that he smokes a pipe and it looks like he's drinking Coke. He shows you how he sits and how he dresses and that he might make a little mess. And even up here, if you look in the upper left, there are more little sketches. So we might call it a quadruple or quintuple self-portrait. It goes on and on. But he's showing you that he does some little thumbnail sketches first. What I find fascinating is look up here. We just talked about some of these folks, right? You've got Albrecht Durer, and you've got Rembrandt, and it looks like probably a Picasso because it's very abstracted, and Van Gogh. He's paying homage to them and saying, I appreciate what you all have done. You're great, great self-portrait artists, and you've really, catapulted self-portraitry to the next level. But I'm going to one up you. I'm going to make mine a little bit better. What I really like is how he actually has his name signed in the painting. Yes, he could have put it at the bottom of the actual full-size painting, which, to be honest, isn't that big. I've seen this before at a traveling show at the DIA, maybe, 20 years ago now. But that's just creative, flat out creative. So it's impressive because this thing is only maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 feet by 3 feet. There's a close-up of those other artists he's paying homage to. And lastly, we have another artist who, now I'm bringing you up to date now. This is a current artist who's still alive. He's like 43 years old in 2020, so a little bit younger than me, and he's making a ton of money. Kehinde Wiley, to be honest, he doesn't do a lot of self-portraits. He doesn't, maybe for vanity's sake, he doesn't want to paint himself. But he paints portraits of other people, and that's why we're talking about him. What he does, which is unique, is that he obviously looked through an art history book at some point, probably going through his studies, and realized he didn't see himself represented. He saw a lot of dead white guys, both as artists and in the paintings. And he wanted to update, portraiture so that it reflected, here's a couple of his, those are him, that's Kehinde, so that it reflected him and his culture and his upbringing. And it changed the course of art's history once again. So, this is an old throwback on the left of Napoleon Bonaparte. But now if you look on the right, he's done an updated version of the famous rapper Ice-T. So I don't know if that was a commission. I would think Ice-T likely bought this. But that's what he does. I mean, you can look at the fabric in the foreground by the feet, for example. It's exactly the same, but he's updated it. And more often what he does is he'll have maybe someone just stand in the same pose, but he'll totally change the background. And his backgrounds are just these richly detailed, almost looks like wallpaper. Sometimes they come in front too. Notice over this gentleman on the right's legs or his knees, we've got the motif running over his legs, or in this case, the flowers going on top of the person and behind. So this is a very common theme you'd see, and you'd see a reclining nude female in the 15, 16, 1700s. But here you see an example of someone, it's updated. Hats on sideways, we can see his tighty whities. It's just a modern version of an old painting, kind of a throwback to something old, but it's new. And these things are huge. This thing would be way taller than a person if you were standing in front of it. So it just encompasses or engulfs you as you look at it. Even me, I thought I'd show you a few examples of myself. I've done a good dozen self-portraits over the years. It's not a big thing of mine, but here's one from high school, for example. It's old because I still had hair back then. Here's one that's done in tempera paint, one in pencil from when I was in my 20s and sported a goatee. Here's one carved in cardboard. Yeah, that was kind of fun to do. Sometimes I sketch or doodle in pen and ink, or these are increasingly abstract. So, like Picasso, I'm always inspired to try different techniques and styles. So this may be your first one. This might be your second, third, fourth, fifth, but it's up to you. All right, possible careers. If you enjoy this unit, by the time you're done, remember this, because if you're an illustrator, you're going to have to be able to draw faces and people. So starting to learn to draw your own face can really help you to draw anyone and everyone. So people that illustrate books, book covers like romance novels and stuff, they have to understand the skeletal and muscular structure of the face so that they can, create faces. Even movie posters, which aren't as popular as say as they used to be. Now everything's just done on a computer. When I was your age, I would go to the movies, yeah, and I loved the movies, but I'd always stop and look at the posters because they were art. They were art. I mean, of course, they were posters, they were copies, but they were always done by an artist. And I always admired the fact that they could make the faces look so real and capture who it was. If it was Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. If you wanted to be a commercial artist or get into marketing, um, knowing how to draw faces can be really helpful. Here's just a few, famous examples. Another job you could have is to be a police sketch artist. Understanding faces, again, can help solve a crime, can help convict someone that's a bad guy or bad girl out on the street. So, using your talents to better, our community, that's great. I'm going to skip by this video right now, but if you want to check, well, maybe we'll watch it really quick. Um, no, I'm not, because I know the audio isn't going to work, so I'm going to skip by it. Check this out, though. You guys know Terry Crews. He was an amazing portrait artist. He used to do portraits for courtrooms. Anyway, check out that video. Go to YouTube. Terry Crews, hopefully you know who that is. Amazing artist. But getting back to this, courtroom sketches, another way to go. You have to be able to work fast. Also, working fast, caricature artists. These folks work fast because they're trying to make a quick buck, especially like the person at Cedar Point, penning or chalking in your drawing really quick. These folks know the rules, but they're breaking the rules. So they know how to draw a good face, but they're going to draw it very simplified and quick. So they understand how to just look at your head shape really quick and break it down into some, pre-thought of mold. And they know different ways to make noses and eyes and ears and everything really quick. They've done it hundreds of times. So they learned systems of ways of doing this. And they're funny and they're fun. You take someone's features. If you have big teeth, caricature artists make them bigger. If you have a big nose, a caricature artist will make it bigger. So it's about accentuating features. Obviously, Barack's ears aren't that big. I don't think Brad's neck is that big, but that's what they do. So you could also be a political cartoonist, similar to caricature, but maybe you study politics. You're a poli-sci major. Having a good finger on the pulse of what's going on in politics can earn you some money. So a lot of folks have done that. All right, let's talk quickly about the media I'm going to allow you to work with on this project. It's not anything and everything. By now, you've got a handle on colored pencil as well as graphite or regular pencil. So you have your choice, which one you want to use. So you can go with colored pencil. Here's an example of colored pencil. One thing to note is that there's lots of different colors. On this gentleman's face, for example, it's not just brown or tan. You don't reach for one color. You might have white or light brown or dark brown or even black. Or it looks like there's some warm tones in here, some yellows or oranges or peaches. So that's what's really going to bring it to life. Here's a great example. If we look close up here, gosh, I see all kinds of colors. Let's just look at one section. I mean, in the eye alone, I see greens and orange and yellow and brown and black and white. And gosh, up here, there's even purple. This person must have seen some vein popping through. And there's red and pink and yellow and orange and white. And so that's really what we're after. If you draw a face, please don't reach for what you think is skin color and call it a day. Really try to mix it up and it will really make it lifelike. Here's another example. If we just look at the lips, for example, lots of different colors. So if you go with color, it will be a bit more difficult. You'll want to do lots of experimenting on the side, a little color tests and see how things blend, because once you use color, you're kind of committing. And you can use unnatural colors, as you see in the hair here. I don't think this gentleman really has this many different colors, but this artist has found the right value, the right lightness or darkness, never mind the color, and it works. So lots of layering, lots of blending, and they can look photorealistic. Pretty impressive. Now you might want to go with pencil. Pencil will be for those folks that are not up for such a challenge. You want to be able to erase things and smudge things and blend things much easier. So it is easier. But here's some colored pencil examples. So for you, it won't be a matter of mixing so many different colors, but you will have to have a range of values. lots of whites, light grays, medium grays, dark grays, blacks, have all those in place. Also, for both colored pencil and pencil, think about your backgrounds. What are you going to do in the background? How can you make it more interesting? You could draw literally what you see, or you could have fun with it and do something odd. You know, you could do something like this where you're actually yourself. This is not really a background, but you know, I've had students have their face on one side melting, or one half skeleton, one half realistic. People that have had themselves, one person, oh, I had a student once who made their face into a puzzle. They drew their face and then they divided it up into sections. And then they took a puzzle piece and their hand was in the artwork, like putting the last puzzle piece in for the eye. So if you can do something that has that wow factor, like Norman Rockwell's triple self-portrait, it's always going to be more exciting than just straight face, head on, you know, so think about that. There's a couple other videos. Well, let's watch one really quick. We'll watch this. I don't know which to watch. Let's watch Emma. This is a cool video. So I will narrate over the top of this, and we'll just kill the volume out of this. There we go. So this is a good way to start. This is colored pencil, but notice that this artist is starting with what we call the technical drawing. So let me get this out of here. The technical drawing is just the line work. So whether you start with pencil or colored pencil, you want to make sure all your proportions are right. Everything's, you know, lined up where it should be before you ever go to really hit it hard with the color or dark pencils. So the technical drawing. And once you get started, yeah, I mean, you could start in anywhere, but like this artist, I generally start with the eyes, because the eyes, they say, are the window to the soul. So if you can nail those and make it look like you, then you're in good shape and the rest gets easier. Notice how this artist is using colored pencil, and notice how many times they're switching colors. Just watch the color in the hand, constantly changing. That's because they know they need lots of different colors. Notice too, this artist has, it looks like a little paper towel under their hand. That's important. Whether you're using colored pencil or graphite, you don't want to smudge what's underneath. So myself, I know this, most artists do. You always want to not rest your hand on the artwork, because it also has oils and dirt and salt, and you want to keep that stuff away from your artwork. Don't touch your artwork. So notice how this artist blocks in a big area of color first. We'll see that here on the nose. One solid color, and then comes back with other colors and more colors to do the fine details. So this artist is going to continue to block in a large section, like that forehead. Boom, one color, then another color, then another color. So they just keep refining and blending. But this artist is brave and bold because they're pressing hard right from the start. That's one way to go. You can start lightly and build it up if you're a little timid or not sure about colored pencils still. But once you get a handle on it and you've used them for a while, like this artist, you go quick. You find the right color, you put it in, you press hard and burnish the color down, and then come back with all these subtle transitions and fine details over the top. Now, please don't be intimidated by this. I'm not trying to show you something that I don't expect you to do this. This is a professional. But at the same time, I'm trying to show you what can be done. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit closer to the end here. So I don't know if this is typical, but this is the way I work. I typically start with the eyes, go to the nose, the mouth, do the face, and then work with the hair and then the background. Because this stuff in the background is easy. Hair, well, it depends on the hairstyle, but not as tricky, I think, as eyes and eyelashes and all those fine details. All right, we're gonna get to the very end and you can see the final product. Pretty impressive. So that's what we're striving for, although, I mean, that is, next level stuff. All right, let's get back to our presentation really quick. Just a few more slides. What we're really concentrating on is obviously color, colored pencil, or value, graphite. Texture, I'd love to see your face be smooth, or if you have some hair or facial hair, make it hairy, make your eyebrows hairy. Also, some sense of space. Your face should not look flat. Your nose should pop off of the surface of the paper, essentially. It should look like it's coming out. Your eyes should look like they go back in space. Contrast will be important. contrast in color, contrast in texture. Also unity, try to use colors or a foreground, background concept that ties everything together so it has this oneness. There are really 6 things that I'd like you to do, and it's these 6. These are the criteria, or in other words, the goals for this project. Number 1, I do want you to try to make it realistic. You can have fun and be creative and do a little surrealism, like I mentioned a minute ago, but at the end of the day, please don't make a cartoon. Please don't work like Picasso and abstract yourself. This class, in case you missed it, is about trying to draw realistically. So do your best, realistic, what they call a bust self-portrait. So it could be chest up, shoulders up. I don't need to see, your waist down or feet or anything. Just, a bust self-portrait. You should really have it be head on, or you could do like Van Gogh or this fella down here, a 3/4 view, but I don't want to see one in profile. I really want to see how well you can do with 2 eyes, and I want to see them both, not just one, okay? I need to see a range of values, whether it's in color or black and white. Don't make it light or like a coloring book. Have darks, mediums, lights, whites, everything in between. And you know by now about a value scale and range of values. It should be, to the best of your ability, proportionate, which means eyes should be about in the middle of your head, and they should be about the right size. Your nose shouldn't be especially large or your mouth really small. So don't make it like an anime character with a little nose that looks like like an L. Like, try to make it proportionate. We've talked about it, or we will talk about it. Try to have some kind of a background, or it might be a foreground. In the example in the lower left there, you'll see a gentleman that has a table or foreground. But I want to see some sense of space. So a foreground or background, preferably one that unifies you, similar colors or similar idea or theme. So think about that. And of course, yes, the last goal is to use colored pencil or pencil. So naturally, that's going to happen. So these are the things I'm trying to get you to do. That's what I'm grading you on. That's what goes through my bald head when I'm grading this. So good luck to you.